Hello everyone and welcome back to today's wildrift video. In today's video we'll be taking a look at the defender of tomorrow, Jayce. In this guide we'll be taking a look through the build, all the abilities, and we'll have gameplay to show off to you all as well. But without further ado, let's head into today's video. Jayce is a brand new champion that can be played in the Baron or mid lane. Jayce is a little bit different to every other champion as he has his ultimate available at level 1. This allows him to change his weapons so he can be played as a melee fighter or a long range poke marksman. Moving on to the build with Jayce, you want to build a lot of attack damage and armor penetration so you could do more damage to them beefy tanks. For the first item we have Manamune. Now Jayce has a lot of abilities available to him, so this allows him to stack Manamune even quicker, and when you upgrade Manamune, when you get to them 700 stacks, you get a lot of bonus damage. The next item we have Youmuu's Ghostblade, gives him attack damage, ability haste and armor penetration, and you also get the momentum passive. Moving builds up momentum and it gives him movement speed at 100 stacks. It allows him to kite around and get to team fights a lot quicker. For the boots we have Onion boots to get that little bit of extra ability haste, and you also have the stasis upgrade. This is really good if Jayce gets dived on by any assassins, or if you're jumping in yourself with the melee form, you can use the stasis to kind of counteract any sort of engage that the enemy might bring. For the next item we have Soraida's Grudge, again another item that gives you attack damage, ability haste and armor penetration. And the cool thing about Soraida's Grudge is the icy passive. Damaging active abilities and empowered attacks slow the enemies by 30%. Now this works really well with the combos that I'll explain later on with the abilities. Moving on to the next item, we have Black Cleaver. Gives you a little bit of max health so you can survive that a little bit longer. Again, more attack damage and more ability haste. And you also have the Sunderer passive. Dealing physical damage to a champion, reduces their armor by 5% for a few seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This is really strong, again, against some tanks. And with Jayce, again, you have a lot of ways to attack and deal damage to the enemy. And most of this is all physical damage as well. So you can make sure that you stack up the Black Cleaver as quick as possible. And for the last item we have Guardian Angel. Again, gives you more attack damage, you get a little bit of armor as well, and you also have the Resurrect passive as well. So if you do take lethal damage, you can restore back to life with 50% base health and 30% mana. Moving on to the runes. For the runes we have Conqueror. Again, as mentioned before, Jayce has a lot of abilities available, so you can stack the adaptive force really quickly, and when you get up to 5 adaptive force stacks, you get bonus damage. Brutal gives you a little bit of AD and armor penetration, which especially helps Jayce early on. Hunter Titan gives Jayce some max health and also some additional max health and tenacity every single time he gets a unique takedown. And Sweet Tooth is there for the laning phase. It increases the honey fruit healing by 25%, and whenever you or a nearby ally eats the honey fruit, you gain 20 gold as well, so you can get to your cool items as soon as possible. And for the spells we have Flash and Barrier. Barrier works really well with Jayce, as sometimes he'll be diving into team fights, so you might take a little bit of extra damage. You can use Barrier and kind of negate most of that damage. Moving on to Jayce's abilities. First up, let's actually take a look at his ultimate, because you actually get your ultimate available at level 1. Now, Jayce has 2 types of weapons. He has the Mercury Cannon and the Mercury Hammer. The Mercury Hammer is his melee form, and the Mercury Cannon is his range form. First up, let's take a look at the Mercury Cannon, and the first ability, Shock Blast. Fires an orb of electricity that detonates on hitting an enemy or reaching the end of its path, dealing physical damage. Orbs fired through an acceleration gate travel further and faster, increasing their damage by 40%, which is another ability that we'll get into later on. Now with the Shock Blast, as you can see, it fires an orb of electricity, and as you can see, it does a little bit of damage. So pretty self-explanatory, nothing too crazy to explain here. Next up, for the Mercury Cannon, we have Hypercharge. Gains a burst of energy, increasing attack speed to maximum of 3 attacks within 4 seconds. These attacks deal a certain amount of physical damage. Now when you activate the ability, you'll hear a sound, and that means you know that your next 3 attacks will have increased attack speed and also deal bonus physical damage. And for the last ability, we have Acceleration Gate. Deploys Acceleration Gate that grants 55% decay movement speed for 3 seconds to allied champions that pass through it. As mentioned there, Shock Blast fired through the gate, travel further and faster, dealing increased damage. So you can see here, I can use Acceleration Gate to gain a little bit of extra move speed if I want to. This is for your whole team as well, so it's really good for engaging or disengaging. And I can also use Acceleration Gate in combination with the Shock Blast. And as you can see, it travels further and it does more damage. Now let's move on to the Mercury Hammer. For the first ability, we have a To the Skies. It leaps to an enemy, dealing physical damage and slowing nearby enemies by 55% for a few seconds. This is really good for clearing mini waves. As you can see the area around that is going to be slowing, and all it does, Jayce just jumps on top of them and deals physical damage, which is really good when you're trying to gap close and trying to jump on top of enemies. The second ability, we have Lightning Field. It has a passive which attacks with the Mercury Hammer, restore 18 mana, and the active is that it releases an electrifying aura, dealing magic damage over 4 seconds to nearby enemies. This works really well in combination with the first ability, To the Skies. So you can use To the Skies and use the Lightning Field. As you can see the little energy field that's around you, and as long as you're close to enemies as well, it'll keep dealing magic damage. And this is really helpful when you're standing on top of enemies, so you can do that little bit of extra damage. And lastly, for the Mercury Hammer, we have Thundering Blow. It knocks the target and enemies near them backwards, dealing magic damage equal to 20% of their maximum health. Again, you can combo this with your first ability if you want to. You can use your first ability, your second ability to deal AoE. And if you do want to knock enemies away, you can just use your third ability, and as you can see, it will knock enemies away. You can maybe even do something crazy as well, like use your first ability and maybe flash and knock the enemy champion into your team if you really want to. This will put you in a pretty scary position, but it is quite fun to do. So a basic combo for Jayce is using your Acceleration Gate, using your first ability to get a little bit of poke damage, and then change into your Mercury Hammer so you can jump in, use all of your abilities and deal a lot of damage. Making sure you use your Acceleration Gate before you turn into Hammer form is really important, because you can get an extra bit of movement speed so you can get close enough to use the Mercury Hammer's first ability, To the Skies. Looking through the skill order with Jayce, Jayce works a little bit differently to other champions. So as you can see at level 1, my ultimate is available and you never need to put any points into it. This means that you can put 5 points in each of the abilities. Now at level 1 you want to go for your first ability, so you have your poke ability available from your Mercury Cannon, and your Mercury Hammer as well. You also have that dash in ability just in case you need to go in for that kill. Then you want to go for your third ability, so you can knock enemies away if you want to with your Mercury Hammer, and also have the Acceleration Gate available to you with the Mercury Cannon. And then you want to go for your second ability, so then you have all abilities available, and then you want to make sure you max your first ability. Then after you max your first ability, make sure you put a point in your first ability whenever available, and at this point you want to max your second ability, so you have that little extra attack speed bonus from your Mercury Cannon available, and also your AoE damage is going to be a little bit more from the Mercury Hammer. And then last but by no means least, you want to max your third ability, and at this point you're level 15, you have a lot of damage and a lot of abilities available to you, so you can carry your team. In conclusion, Jayce is the definition of a lane bully. He has 6 abilities available to him at level 3, and these can all be used to poke, engage and kill the enemy champions. And when it comes to the late game, you can use his abilities to poke the enemy carries at range and jump on top of them with your high burst damage. And there you have it. That's everything you need to know about the Defender of Tomorrow, Jayce. He's a very interesting champion with 2 different weapons and 2 pretty much completely different playstyles that you could play with Jayce at the same time. Let me know down in the comments if you're going to be picking up this champion. And as always, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all very soon. Peace.